Hello, everyone. Today we're talking to Dr. Urs Schneider. Urs is the Scientific Director of Health at Fraunhofer IPA in Stuttgart and leads the Human Technology Interaction Department at the University of Stuttgart. With over 20 years of experience in mechatronics engineering and a doctorate from Heidelberg University, Dr. Schneider is a globally recognized expert in exoskeletons, prosthetics, and orthotics technologies. He has played key roles in numerous research committees and initiatives in Europe and the US, including co-founding Wearicon Europe and the Exo Workathlon study format. Urs, welcome. Excited to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me, Josh.
Of course. So we first met through a contact I made that was part of the Fraunhofer team, if I remember correctly. Fraunhofer is a very unique organization, so I thought maybe you could start with an overview of your career to date and that group's specific role in the wearable robotics industry.
Yes, so as a medical doctor by background, I'm highly motivated in treating the musculoskeletal system and protecting the genius musculoskeletal system from harm. When I started, I was only looking into orthopedic surgery, rehabilitation, prosthetics, orthotics stuff. And then people had asked me, hey, couldn't you use the know-how you have from your labs to look into prevention? And I said, I don't think so, because this is what the ergonomic guys do in industry, so-called industry. I was only looking at hospital. And then I understood that ergo people don't have a clue about kinetics. They don't know about the loads, the specific loads inside a joint. When they need someone, they ask an orthopedic surgeon, what should we do here? And he would say this or that. He doesn't torque by education. I'm a medical doctor myself, so I know what a doctor does not know. And then we understood that if we use our mechatronics expertise with a little bit of physiotherapy, orthopedics, and motivation for the field and movement science, that we have our role there. So we fell into that more and more. And in the meantime, I would say 60% of our work is looking into primary and tertiary prevention. That means how can we keep people from being injured? And the other, which is the hot new topic now, is how can we enable reintegration for everyone? How can we do reintegration for logistics workers with heavy back pains, with exoskeletons? How can we enable return to shop floor in a wheelchair in front of a CNC machine? What's missing there? And this is very cool. We do this in Germany with small companies. We do this for insurers. We do this for the German military. And on the other side, we keep with our, let's say, classic orthopedics and neurology-wise looking biomechatronics.
I love how you're bridging the worlds of medical rehabilitation devices and the types of devices that are used in the workplace.
Mhm.
Thanks for all the background. Could you tell us a little bit about Exo Workathlon? I have to admit, I don't know anything about it yet.
Okay, so Exo Workathlon. I knew from the book at which I teach at uni of Mr. Latash that when you give a human the job of putting a cup from position A to B with the smartness of our system, and we repeat that 10 times from exactly the same point A and B to B, and we will do that 10 times differently because our system is so smart. Activate those muscles, next time those muscles, those to regenerate, those are shown to be too fast, those too slow. So we are super highly variable and smart in our system. And when I then looked at huge test sites for testing exoskeletons. I thought, hey, these jobs are so complex that if you ask people after 10 obstacles if they like the device, it's very difficult because we are so highly variable, smart machines that we can cope with all kinds of situations and will also manage them 10 times differently. So if we cannot reduce the human test setup to, let's say, a 3-point bending test, then our personal variability influences the does he profit from the exo or not test will be very diffuse. So we said, let's design a realistic but simple, highly repetitive test which is relevant to testing an occupational exoskeleton. And let's repeat this as often as possible, and then to timestamp base, look at perception, body pains, productivity, cardiovascular load, EMG, whatever. And do this as a realistic in performance 1 hour A/B test, 1 hour of with an exo, 2 hours of rest, and then 1 hour without, and then randomize the one with or without. And the other is sorry, go ahead, Josh.
Well, just for context, should we be thinking about this as a test instrument used by, say, a manufacturer that is comparing different products?
So, yes, absolutely. We said we wanted to develop a method that, as this industry started, everyone very small, little capability of testing whatever, in trying to propose some comparative standards to do this. Now we're waiting for the poll. I think in the next 2 months, Exo Workathlon at the methodology will be an ASTM F48 standard.
Oh, fantastic.
And then those companies can use the cooking book, or those who take part in our test that we do can relate to this was tested this way, and that helps industries if there's a standard to relate their work to. And in addition, we say it's always people love to watch other people work. So we said, let's do Exo Workathlon experiments, welding, grinding, box lifting, car body assembly on conferences related to exos or on trade shows as real experiments with true workers in a certain setting. And then if the conference session is too boring, you just walk out and watch those people watch about the same topic. And it showed that people like that. When we show people working hard in front of them, you stand there with coffee, discuss exos, and then you watch that guy doing this with isn't that exo. So now we have 126 subjects that went to this A/B trial of Exo Workathlon. We have 9 different obstacle paths that were all developed by teachers of vocational schools that are dedicated to that specific profession with us, with the German, let's say, NIOSH, and with young people aged between 18 and 25 that all had at least 2 years of physical work experience. Because we learned that us from academia, we're not able to really work hard physically. And you need someone with the true load, the true physique, and the true movements. And then we said, to protect the subjects and to be realistic, people have to show that they worked at least for 2 years already in their kind of job. And that is the main cooking book. And people love to watch this. Last time we did it was at the big A+A and Wearable Europe conference in Düsseldorf last year, and I'm just about to prepare the parkours and stuff for November next year again in Düsseldorf.
Exciting. I need to get out to WearCon Europe.
Oh yeah.
There's so much going on in Europe in wearable robotics. So this concept makes me think of the concept of activities of daily living when we talk about medical devices. You're sort of developing the cookbook of activities of daily work.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's a
And
helpful.
we extend this now since June. We are developing the activity of daily work of infantrists and develop a special test site in Germany so that infantrists can test new boots, new helmets, new rucksacks, new wearable devices, maybe exoskeletons in a, for them, realistic setting, special obstacles, indoor, outdoor, water, forest. We instrument the forest, we instrument the water, and we can timestamp, we can measure kinetics on the tree, we can give him feedback, let him get feedback. And so the nice thing, I think, why Exo Workathlon is interesting for some people, the cooking book is simple and easy to understand. It's very simple. It's no art, it's simple. And now we have the honor to develop this for the German forces. And the US colleagues are aware, and it will be a NATO topic. And so that infantrists themselves can give us very specific feedback on the torque on this obstacle was good. Of this new boot here, the boot was too stiff. I see that on the first plate. I see how he fatigues over time because I measured cardiac output, not just heart rate, but cardiac output. To appreciate the job and to get specific feedbacks.
So when I was reading about Exo Workathlon, I thought of Cybathlon, related interesting competition in Europe, and also the DARPA robotics challenges that have spurred innovation in the US. Could you see doing something similar with exoskeletons, where we had users with exoskeletons competing with each other?
So I never thought about competition. Because exoskeletons are pioneering devices, and everyone is new in that field. You know, the oldest commercial exoskeleton is not that old, and every generation will have fore and back and whatever. And if we give out tables, this one has a mark A, this one has a mark B, it won't be good for those companies, maybe unfair because it was just a prototype in between. This is not, I always say this is the car in 1890. Yeah, we have to be fair to the exos. And therefore I said, what is the joint information? So this is why in Exo Workathlon, we specifically give out those exos took part, and that is the statistics output on comfort and stuff. And we don't, companies can have their specific feedback for their benchmark. But I don't want to give out data on specific devices today, maybe one day, but that's never been in the interest. It's more about what can we do as a tech organization, as a nonprofit, which has by function to support innovation of industry. That's our function at Fraunhofer. And we thought we don't need competition right now. We need joint strong stories to support this market. So Josh, this is where we came from, and where I still insist on that it's an early pioneering industry, and that's still fragile. And devices are early, and they're good in the meantime. We get and this is why, for example, on the contrary to Cybathlon, which I love, And I also had the opportunity to join in 2016 Cybathlon with Robbie Cooper in Pittsburgh. We were sub-partner in his wheelchair race. Cybathlon looks at pioneering research, and we say for safety also we only look into commercial safety-proof devices. We don't open the box of research devices in Exo Workathlon.
That makes sense. That's an insightful answer.
That's the point. It was, and there's maybe then a difference. Although I love Cybathlon, and I think it's a very wise approach. But this is where I think it's a different topic. I want no competition. I want a competition between without versus with Exos.
Well, this sounds like an opportunity for someone to create another type of event. So I wanted to ask, you think a lot about testing occupational exoskeletons, and it sounds like a lot of different kinds of exoskeletons as well. What are some of the key criteria that you look at when evaluating these devices?
So, and with the methods we do over here in Exo Workathlon, we primarily ask for the subjective feedback of the person, and we ask it with body heat maps over 1 hour, like every 10th minute. So we stop the continuous welding, drilling, whatever 1 hour task by easy optimized asking certain question, and we look at how the body heat maps turns in the panes over time. We do, and then we have some variables. We have some aspects where we look at productivity, because I think the boss likes ergonomics when the guy is more productive. and so show signs of productivity, and there is good reason that that if you're working in a more relaxed way, you're more productive. You come back tomorrow, your muscles don't get that sore, and the welding seems more precise, 10% more precise. We could show this on 46 welders with an Exo, shoulder Exo. So we look at the subjective feedback, because PPEs only sell if workers like it. Workers won't accept PPEs by law if they hate them. So subjective feedback is important, and it's a diffuse thing of emotion and whatever. We ask within this the system usability score, which is an international table in general. We ask the Borg scale on fatigue. We ask a body heat map on pains. And then we do, not in every experiment, it's an effort thing and specific sub-design thing, EMG, deltoid muscles, EMG, erector spinae, sub-questions. We do impedance cardiography sometimes, a method of non-invasive cardiac output measurement, which is cool in my eyes. And then we may have some productivity measures, welding accuracy or screwing surface when drywall assembly. We primarily ask the industry and the teachers in the vocational school, what's relevant in that job? What does it consist of? And when do you say it's okay? And what's the minimum? And so we design every one of those things. At the moment, I design one on tilers of laying plates in the bathroom in this, which is a tough job. Osteoarthritis of the knee, shoulder, back, hard job. I'm just designing a parkour there, but I'm not designing it. I'm speaking with the teachers in the vocational schools. How is that done? How do you need it? What's good? What not? And these are my criteria. What the teacher says. So that's it mainly. It is some biosignals, subjective feedback, some productivity aspects, of quality of output, that people would say, that's it. In addition to
I love how you're marrying these different categories of outcome measures. To non-experts, I think this is one of the hardest things to communicate about this type of technology.
Mhm,
There's not just one dimension of benefit,
mhm,
but many dimensions.
mhm,
And for the product to be successful,
mhm,
it has to work across
mhm.
all dimensions.
And the A/B test has its limits, but it's easy to understand. It's also easy to understand the limits. To say, do this 8 hours a day? No, we won't. It's a 1 hour comparison.
Hmm.
Okay. So how many days did they try before? It depends. In some we gave them days. In some there was just no time, but we document and say. So the test is easy to understand. That's it. And then also to say what's rubbish. I said, no, I don't want this. So that's it. And then maybe in addition, we're opening some boxes, Josh, on, and then it's close to very cool stuff you're doing. You may know that we work on robot-based tests. We started out in 2007 on trying to develop a prosthetic walking robot. And it took us some years now. Adidas uses our test platform for 10 years now for basketball specific V-cut shuffle and whatever thing to test their shoes in Germany, not in Portland, but in Germany. And so we started out with trying to mimic gait with a six-axis robot and thought this was simple. It was not simple at all. It is not simple, still today, not simple. But it's a cool topic. And so what we do with that is functional testing. So we said, let's try to give a certain specific setting and repeat that. Or try to mimic a certain kinetic or kinematic feature. And we test prosthetic ankles with that, AFOs. That's it mainly. It's AFOs, ankles, sometimes shoes. We already also tested shoes in that, pronation behavior of anti-pronation behaviors of shoes. And Adidas, I can say that's official, has their test machines from us on functional tests of specific sports shoes.
Fascinating. Um, the apparel and footwear industries have many parallels to the exoskeleton industries. I'm excited to see more and more examples of crossover.
Mhm, mhm.
So I wanted to ask, as an expert in the testing of these devices, how have you typically interfaced with the developers of the products? How do you create positive feedback loops from the users and the results of the tests into design improvements?
So a very good question, Josh. We started out with the prosthetic ankles communication many years ago, when we were asked by the ISO Committee for Prosthetic Testing that our robot approach, which was visible then, looked really crazy for them. And they said, "Hey, couldn't you enter our ISO Committee on Prosthetic Testing with maybe your device is just crazy, or it's maybe a functional test based on which we may learn something for standard machines?" And then I think 2008 we started in the German and in the ISO committee on prosthetics ankle tests, and are members in that committee since then. And with the ISO committee in prosthetics testing, it's a cool international communication, mainly between manufacturers, as far as it's possible for them to communicate in such meetings. and some test houses and some research guys like us, and discussing the do's and don'ts and the needs. So, looking at prosthetic ankles, where is the ankle joint? Yeah, where's the movement axis? Yeah. So prosthetics and these challenges, and the same is now when you say shoulder exos. Where's the joint? Is it like it's even worse, right? Okay. So it is there in prosthetics. It is a long tradition of ISO communication, and also sometimes visiting guests in the L Code committee. So the US committee to that. And in case of the exos, it was from start a very nice F48 communication in ASDM. And there is a very different work style in ASDM International relative to DIN ISO. And I love this ASDM style. It's because industry needs fast solutions, and the ASDM style is way faster than the DIN ISO style, and it's still democratic because the standard committee work has to give everyone the time to discuss that and negotiate and get to a majority decision. And the global expert way of ASDM International in the path and also in F48, I'm really impressed with the way this is done in expert meetings, topic by topic. It's just very interesting. And it's interesting. The discussions are amazing and the speed is amazing. And this combination is very cool.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you are an active participant in both of these communities. I don't know if I'd consider myself active, but I've definitely participated in meetings and have noticed the style is quite different. Part of that is probably due to the fact that exoskeletons are such an emerging industry, whereas prosthetics and orthotics has been around for over 100 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
would say
in any event,
it's an ASDM style. There is something in the ASDM style which is way more agile. And that's fun for everyone. Everyone loves agility.
yeah, agreed. So this conversation has mainly focused on testing and testing standards. What are some of the other things you're involved in? As a professor, I guess you're teaching, and you're maybe doing research. Yeah, could you maybe zoom out for us a little bit?
Yeah. So on the one side, my main role at the moment is I'm head of the whole life science section of our institute unit, and that's 75 people stuff in 3 towns. This is Stuttgart, Mannheim near Heidelberg, and a little Bavarian town called Bayreuth. I'm head of the whole thing, but I'm doing the biomechatronics research work. The other is where I'm head of admin, but I'm not competent in those other fields. Try to be a lean, nice boss. And then I teach biomechatronics at Uni Stuttgart. I love that. Do this now for, I think, 14 years. And I teach biomechatronics to biomedical engineers in bachelor and master degrees, and to students can choose that, to mechanical engineers, cybernetics engineers, mechatronic engineers. Sometimes we also have aerospace people, which you can study in Stuttgart, and they're always cool on the lightweight design solutions for wearables. And so it's mainly teaching some principles of medical logics approach to engineers. And then always with guests, and maybe Josh, you would want to share once, maybe also if you want, online, always invited physically. If you want,
Sure.
biomechatronics sessions on testing and those cool foot mechanisms and robot and testing challenges you're working on, and have your strong role. And because when I ask people every year, they say, "What did you like the most?" And they said, "The guests." I said, "Okay, thank you." So they like if I bring guests. That's the way I interpret that positively. And I very often try to fuse a patient in the lecture room with his device, with the manufacturer and the physician. So sometimes that's a fit, and then it's a cool session. Everyone loved that. And so the uni studies are normally pretty academic, a lot of, in a positive sense, theory, but people love when I bring patients on stage and new devices. So I try to be always new FES devices, new prosthetic knees, new prosthetic hands, affordable devices, one global solution, yeah, highly affordability, whatever. And so I love this. And in this teaching, there is one thing that I really enjoy a lot. In winter, normally before Christmas, I spent 4 days with 15 to 20 master students in a crash course room. Once I put a tractor and a wheelchair next to each other into the room. It's a large educational, and they were pretty surprised. And then I told them why there are people that have had a farming accident and want to go back onto the tractor. And then the question, so how to get from the wheelchair back to the tractor? 4 days. What they didn't know, the guy who did it with me was a tractor mechanic in a wheelchair. Only when they asked him days later, what are you doing here? He told them that he develops lifts for tractors to get up with wheelchair. And in this winter, I'll have a 23 years old nice lady, tetraplegic lady, and she wants a new computer design mouse tool. And I will have an interdisciplinary course of medical engineering students. I'll take 5 nursing students first time in it as well. And then it's the makerspace of Uni Stuttgart. It is 11 printers. It is weaving, knitting, cutting machines, workshop space. I sent them for 1 day with the lady in the wheelchair to local fashion shops to see what's her style. And then we try to find an acceptable solution. And in this, try over 4 days to teach them what is the B model of development. So never specify what you cannot test later. And do a 4-day crash, what's possible. The patient in the center is same age as the students. That showed to be a cool thing. If it's a baby or if it's a granny, it's not that cool as if the patient has the same age as the students. And then it can be a cool thing. And so I like this crash course thing. But the main thing that we're doing is research and engineering on wearable devices and the economics assessment.
Fascinating. I'd love to participate in a virtual session of some kind, and I should be in Germany in the next 6 months or so.
Oh, wonderful.
So we need to arrange a visit.
Oh, wonderful. Josh, just let me know when. Nice.
Wonderful. I will. So one topic you and I have been discussing recently is testing as a service.
Mhm.
So I've been involved in the development of many different prosthetic and exoskeleton systems, and the consistent need I'm seeing um, is for service providers who can test these products, because there are few experts in testing, such as yourself. The equipment to do the testing is quite expensive. So I'm just curious for your perspective on this topic, and specifically if this is a service that Fraunhofer likes to advertise.
So we test, and this is one role why we appreciate in Germany by industry that they can say this was tested by Fraunhofer. It's a brand.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, there is a brand IPA tested device. So we have beside mine a very different department. That's a clean room technology department, and every electronic device that is integrated into a clean room in Europe is tested in our institute. So on every electronic part in a clean room in Europe, there is IPA tested device on it. So we are allowed as a nonprofit to do it. We do and we did if companies want in our motion lab based on Exo Workathlon or not. I think as a test house, it's always positive. And although we are non-profit, we're allowed to do confidential work for industry. That means if someone wants something and he said, I don't want you to publish, then it's okay for me. And sometimes people, when they want to test, it must be okay if you don't have to publish and you paid for it. And Fraunhofer does that. Unis are not allowed, and there's a good reason for that, and it's absolutely okay. And we had an idea in how far we could be an advertising institution for example, F48 for ASDM International for the whole, because the whole EXO standard is big, is many subtopics to say, okay, you have a question and you're from France, Spain, Germany. These are the standards. And this is where I can test it in the US because those guys did the test and the Exo Workathlon tests. We can offer them with ASDM International for ASDM International in Europe, maybe have a counterpart in the US. So I just know that it's an open discussion if it's interesting. But sometimes people have things tested by us. Sometimes they want us to publish together, sometimes not at all, because they just want their internal test in a development loop. And as a nonprofit, we have to be paid by the hour. That's it. We are not cheap. Why this? As we are a nonprofit, but we are 30,000 people. It's the largest tech research organization of Europe. And by that, we have overhead costs. And that's 30,000 people. It's just the overhead. We have state salaries, so the salary is okay by the hour, really. But with the overhead of a big tech organization, the hour that we have to charge full cost is for some to say, ooh, it's not expensive. Can't tell you. Yeah. So
Makes sense. Yeah, I think this is a big need. Especially as a young, ambitious, entrepreneurial person developing a new product for the very first time, you probably don't know anything about the testing standards. And testing is this annoying hurdle you have to get through before you can sell your product. So I think the branding aspects are actually really important. If people around the world recognize your brand as the place, as an easy place, a convenient place to do the testing, that solves a big need in the field.
And I know the need, Josh, that you mentioned that in the beginning, that some may and did also just they wanted our specs for the test rig to say, no, we'll do it ourselves. He said, yeah, just watch online, Exo Workathlon, you find all the specs there. I want to do the test myself, and then I can refer to the database, which is cool. Yeah. So some people want to do things at home alone, and then they may just take the specs from the test rig. And some may want us to develop the rig for themselves. Like Adidas has the robot test bed. Yeah. And we're looking into commercializing robotic test beds maybe for prosthetic manufacturers, if it helps, because we see one specific need, Josh. Everyone's under pressure. Productivity is the thing, and working in a test lab of a manufacturer has changed as well. Few people, way more tests at a time, and then robots may help. Does the test, and this place runs over, does this, then a step, then a bending, and whatever, and robots can help. So we're looking into all those ways. We do not know yet, and this is with our expert Duc Nguyen. Yeah, you're in contact. An ongoing topic in how far should we offer more of a service standards. So we do, people can use, but very often they want to do it at home. But we do test ankles for manufacturers worldwide. But it's actually not very often. I think a lot of those who do that, and there's also the aspect maybe Josh would want to mention with established companies, those who, it's not many companies that just start prosthetic ankles. So in prosthetics relative to exos, very often people have their own test labs.
So, yeah, I'm curious if you can speculate why people tend to want to do it themselves. My experience has been a little bit different. I think I'm more familiar with the very small and startup type companies who don't have the resources to do it themselves. So maybe that's a little bit of a difference for the people approaching you. Is it just cost? Is it just an economic thing?
Prosthetics, which I love, know for many years, in my eyes, has sometimes an over exaggerated level of confidentiality.
Hmm.
A lot of these devices say, yeah, of course, keep it confidential, but I say it's not a rocket. It's good. You see from the mechanics what it is. You see the bending movement from the design, but I think in prosthetics, people want very often to test at home. That's I don't ask anymore why this is, but this is my understanding. Young companies not, and this is where we also help over here. But the established ones, and they're good, and they have their expertise, and we can learn from them. Also in the ISO committee work, we learn a lot in the interaction with the large one, and it's cool. Yeah.
Very interesting. I see what you mean. So you have a very flexible and collaborative approach, clearly, which I love, and I share at Humotech. We're trying to build a similar type of organization. I'm curious how much of this is you and your personality. Uh, is it the mission of Fraunhofer to work in this kind of way?
So,
And how have you seen this as like a powerful asset?
so Fraunhofer is a private non-profit, but base funded by 30% of our institution by the German state. And we have a certain mission, and this mission is to support the small and medium-sized industry in innovation. So the idea is sometimes we manage, sometimes we don't. Normally, you don't speak about those things that crashed, but we try to help in bridging the gap from basic to production in-house, basic research to production in-house, and be a friend and partner to industries. And this is also our reputation over here. We are a service-oriented research organization. Sometimes we may even be also in competition, maybe with some industries, high-end industries on some tech we do develop. But in general, we are an innovation-oriented institution that has to support industry in its innovation demands. Of course, we also have our own agenda, and we also invent own things. MP3, MP4, the white LED, the blue LED is inventions from Fraunhofer. And so out of our tech research, there may be inventions. We patent a lot, and then we try to license. But it's maybe when you speak about this by personality, but it's also actually really the DNA of our institution that that it is that we wake up in the morning with what does our industry need from us today or in 5 years? So what should we research develop that industries will need next week? What consulting do they need this afternoon? And that's the idea. And then to listen to what they say that they need and try then to react to that. So to see this applied research, tech, services as a loop, and we are highly appreciated for this. So the president of Fraunhofer is always a main person in the German long-term tech strategy of the country, and sometimes we don't make it, but this is the general function and mission we should fulfill, Josh. Yeah.
Yeah, it's powerful. You should open a branch in the U.S.
We have a branch in the US. We have a 300 people sub branch in the US. There is and these are like departments and sub teams and little institutes related to German Fraunhofer institutions. The biggest one, CTI, is in Boston and is looking at some manufacturing and bio things. Yeah. But it's relatively to the whole institution is a smaller team. And what we do have is collaboration. So, for example, I have a long-term close relationship with Rory Cooper and the Pittsburgh VA and Uni Pittsburgh. Rory also teaches in my class, sometimes online, sometimes he's here together with Rosie sometimes. And in 3 weeks, I'll have him here. We'll have the German Biomedical Engineering Conference in Stuttgart, and he's our keynote guest.
Wow, great.
So we know the strength of Uni Pittsburgh, of Carnegie Mellon. We're just discussing new projects, and I have a close friend, Andy Hansen, at the Minneapolis VA. We know each other. I think we worked together since 2008 when he was still on his PhD in Chicago before I moved to Minneapolis. And he's also part very often of my teaching. And we're just close friends, and we have a VA Fraunhofer collaboration contract. And And then Tom Sugar is a close friend of mine. We pushed this tough Workon topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I love the German American communication, and there's always cool things to do.
Oh, that's great. We have some work to do in this area. We will follow up.
Nice.
So, yeah, getting towards the end here. I have a few calls to action in mind. But before I get there, could you share with our listeners some of the places online where they can go to learn more about you? Um, Maybe your department at Fraunhofer and at the University of Stuttgart.
Oh,
How can we
sure.
find you online?
So the one is, some when I think there is something new to inform about, I use LinkedIn. For example, the tetra and paraplegic ladies and continent study I'm doing at the moment, and the reintegration into work symposium at RehaCare in 3 weeks in Düsseldorf. So LinkedIn is one. You find the Fraunhofer IPA webpage and somehow me. Exo Workathlon is a webpage of its own. We set a landing page for that. Does make sense. That's it mainly. Yeah.
Sounds good. We'll put links to all of those in our show notes. So yeah, before we close, I was wondering if you could share some words of wisdom to our listeners of an area of tech development that you think requires more attention.
Mhm. So I think one area between 10 or 75% of all people on this planet that suffer from a disability have no access to assistive devices. And the production costs of those devices from the northern planet area does not even meet the market price in those countries of need. And on top, the functional requirements to those devices in the poor countries are very often higher because you work with them, you walk on gravel, you do whatever in a rural farming country. So higher mechanical requirements, way low production costs. So the aspect of a paradigm shift in how are things made at all, which is not a cheap copy of, but in my eyes, the question is so challenging, so difficult that it's about paradigm shift of production of functional devices for one planet. I always say the iPhone is for everyone in Kenya, like in Chicago or in Stuttgart. They don't subdivide, but prosthetic does. Not good. And the production volume are always low, and that's boring for manufacturers anyway, but they don't produce for everyone. So that's the one planet thing, I think, is technically a super challenge and difficult. This is why it's not solved yet. Bending behaviors of ankles is just hard, right?
Fundamentally, the mechanics are quite hard.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that gives me something to think about.
And then a second aspect, which I doubt more and more the older I get, Josh, the non-compliance to medical devices. We say in the US and in Germany, 50% of all subscribed drugs, orthosis, prosthesis are not used after they've been paid. leading to at least the same cost amount of further illnesses and stuff. So the price is double and the use is half. And the planet has no answer yet to that. In my eyes, when we develop, we start with the function. And then we say, hey, it doesn't look cool. So maybe green. And then we ask, is that okay? That's it. We never start from beauty. I would say the paradigm shift to whatever I do, I must look better than without. So to maybe raise compliance, user compliance by more user-centric design, and I would say user-centric aesthetics. And to start with that, it's not the drugs, but the wheelchairs, the orthosis, the exo stuff, to be cost efficient in treatment because you love your device, you identify yourself with your device, and an aspect of this is beauty. And we never do that. And I love that. It's a cool thing somehow to look into. I never did that in the past. Like with those patients and going to the fashion shop and what's your style? But I think a way more, an even higher level of user-centric work, up to putting the patient into the driver's seat of all kinds of devices and the development decisions. That is something maybe.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. Very well said, Urs. Thank you for spending time with us today. I really enjoyed the conversation. You did too.